Maybe we'll wait for 10 minutes and see whether more people. Hello?
We can hear you, sir. Whatever you say is fine.
Yeah, all right. Okay. Maybe we'll start. I think without wasting time, we can start. Hello? Hold on, it's network. Hold on. Hello. Good evening, colleagues.
Good evening.
Hello?
Good evening,
Hello,
sir.
good evening. Good evening. Yes, colleagues. You are welcome to this edition of our monthly national clinical presentation. The hosting state is Lagos State. Are you hearing me? Am I audible?
Yes, sir, you're audible.
Okay.
We can hear you. Please go ahead.
All right. Okay. From Augustine Akem, I don't know whether you can help us, lead us in an opening prayer. I want us to start right away. Hello?
Hello.
Yeah, hello?
All right, let us pray. In the name of the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit. God, our Father, we thank you for bringing us to our monthly meeting. We pray you fill this session with your wisdom and your understanding. We pray you give the moderator the enablement to carry us along and to empower us academically. Also pray for colleagues that you, Lord, make them to join us accordingly so that all be able to achieve more academically to the greater glory of your name.
Hello?
Through Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen.
Amen. Thank you very much.
Amen.
You're welcome. Amen and amen. You're welcome to this edition of our clinical presentation. The hosting state is Lagos State. I would like to recognize some of the VIPs present, especially the Apex members of the Apex, board of the EPAM, eminent professors present. Then committee chairman of the various states. You are welcome to our presentation tonight. Our national chairman is not there right now. We'll go through those members of the West African College of Pharmacy, or the DPSs, you are all recognized. Without wasting much time, I think we'll go straight to the business of the day. Hello, are you hearing me?
Yes,
hello?
we can.
Yes, sir, we can hear.
Okay, yes, okay. And the presenter this night is one of our own. Our presenter tonight is Dr. Arinola Jordan. Dr. Arinola Jordan is one of our own. He's a member of the pool of experts. We expect expert knowledge this night. The member of Clinical Pharmacists Association. She's an associate professor of clinical pharmacy at the University of Lagos. Professor Ariola is a reviewer of many reputable scientific journals. She has numerous publications in peer-reviewed journals to her credit. She's a mentor to many of our colleagues, a champion of collaboration in the academia. She has written about soft skills in pharmacy newsletters, vigilante and nuggets, abstracts, on topics such as teamwork, leadership, and time management. Dr. Ariola, you have the cyber floor. Could you please start sharing your slide? Thank you.
Thank you very much, moderator, for the introduction.
Yes.
And I thank you all for having me today. So we're here today to talk about something that is very close to my heart and something that we all need to be engaged in one form or the other. Share my screen.
Oh, they're capable of giving us a good presentation.
So we're here to talk about So we're here tonight to talk about all of us being involved in clinical pharmacy research. I know that you would say, as an academic, we live and we breathe research.
Yes.
But I have been, to be appreciated if you are not talking, if you could just mute yourself so that distractions can be minimized. The floor will be open later, questions and comments. And if in the course of the presentation, a question catches your fancy, you can just drop it in the chat box so that you don't run the risk of forgetting by the end of the presentation. So you can just drop it in the chat box and then it can be attended to all at the end. Also, as is usual, members of CPAN on the call should indicate their names and their states on the in the chat box for collation later by the team. Okay, so I think that's a bit about housekeeping as we go into tonight's discourse on engaging in clinical pharmacy research. I'm Dr. Ariola Joda, has been mentioned, and I'm also the coordinator for Lagos State. So my objectives are not too fancy. Basically, to define research and its importance, present examples of clinical pharmacy research, explain types of research clinical pharmacists can engage in, explain the research process, and then present benefits and barriers against participating in research. And just to put some background, I'm taking this topic because I realize that there are many of us that should be engaged in research. For one reason or the other, we are not. There are those of us that think we should be engaged in research, but we have somehow managed to disqualify ourselves to say that, oh, it's not for me, it's for those other people, those people in academia or those people that are trying to do a project or something. But in my day-to-day business, I don't really need research. But the truth is that for all of us, at one point or the other, something has struck us as being curious, something you have wondered, oh, what if there could be an answer to this question? You have maybe in your practice, maybe just by walking along the streets, you have wondered, why are there so many cars on Lagos streets? Why does Airtel not work when it rains? These are questions, and they are all things that could end up being researched, and then you would find the answers, and then we would all be better for it. So the purpose here is to build up our interest, give us some basic background that would equip us to engage in research, and then to tell us that we are all researchers. We should all be in the business of researching. So in my introduction, I put together several definitions of research, and I will just read a couple of them. Systematic investigation into and the study of materials and sources in order to establish facts and reach new conclusions. Involves the collection, organization, and analysis of evidence to increase understanding of a topic characterized by a particular attentiveness to controlling sources of bias and error. Research is a process of investigation, is an examination of a subject from different points of view. What you will find in common with all these various definitions is that, one, there's a system to it, there's a process to it. There's nothing haphazard about research. Students will tell me, I would ask, how are you going to collect this data? I would just go to the school and find whoever would be interested in answering my questions. At the end of the day, if you do research like that, the results that you get will not be useful, because it is not something that was interrogated through any process. There was no thought, there was no planning to it. Research denotes searching for something again and again. If you are a student of English, like most of us are, you know that research composes of two parts, the re and the search. Means that to search again and again until you find something, until you find something new, until you find what you're looking for, or you keep searching. It offers an opportunity for investigators to explore unanswered questions, highlight best practices, and engage in collaboration. There used to be a time when engaging in research as an individual or as a monosystem, maybe all of the researchers are in one particular field. They are all anatomists, or they are all biochemists, or they are all clinical pharmacists. So that mono kind of research used to happen. But in today's world, collaboration is the key. You need to engage in research that brings different professionals, different ideas, different kinds of thoughts to the table, so that when a topic is looked at, it can be explored from different angles. The pharmacist can say their own, the engineer can say how they can build that device, the sociologist can say how acceptable that thing will be, and at the end of the day, we come up with a more robust results that will be more directly applicable than if just one single entity is involved. So research is an opportunity for collaboration. Clinical research can engage healthcare professionals to identify treatments or procedures to enhance patient care, quality of life, and outcomes. As we go through this presentation, I will be looking at research purely in its own merit, and as well as infusing clinical pharmacy research and some of the things that we could engage in as clinical pharmacists in our various spheres of work. The goal of clinical pharmacy research at the end of the day is to improve individual patient care, that through the dissemination of knowledge that is available in publications. When you do a research, you find out something, and that result that you have is only found in the shelf of your supervisor's office, or in your university library, or in the industry library. Then you have what's the word now? You have deprived the world of the results that could be used to change practice. You have deprived the world of a better way, or a newer way, or a cheaper way, or a more affordable way of ensuring that patients get the best outcomes from their therapy. So when we do research, ultimately, we must publicize it, we must share the knowledge so that it can be useful to a larger group of people. Now, what's the purpose of research? Ultimately, to enhance the bank of knowledge, or to develop new theories in the field, or to identify a problem and search for solutions for that problem. So when we're engaging in research, for many of us in academics, sometimes we just do some research just so we could have publications, just so we can be promoted. But engaging in research just for the purpose of promotion is such a myopic way of going into research, because at the end of the day, you complete the research, you publish the article in a journal, and you quietly wait for your promotions to come. You don't bother about trying to see, okay, the stakeholders that could be that should be informed about the results of that study. They are not informed. How you can present that, because when we publish an article, it's not everybody that understands or that can sieve through the the scientific jargon of that publication. So if the study is not something that is going to change practice, that is going to improve patient care for us in clinical pharmacy, or that is going to change something around how things work for any other field of practice, then that research is just for the sake of research. You do the research, you publish the article, but that research is not going anywhere. Maybe because it's a dead topic, life has moved past it. There have been newer solutions since then. So to contribute to knowledge, that is the entire purpose of research. And that is why I always say, when I have the opportunity to talk to hospital pharmacists and clinical and community pharmacists especially, for clinical pharmacy research, these groups of practitioners are the holders of the information. They are the ones that deal with the patients. They are the ones that have access to the clients. They are the ones that are seeing these clients on a daily or weekly or monthly, on a frequent basis, so they can get the information directly that is needed to change something. But when those of us that are dealing with, I call them, that deal directly with patient-facing activities, we don't count research as something that we're actually supposed to do. In fact, I know that quite a number of pharmacists consider those of us in academia that we are coming to disturb them, coming to look for data, they count it as a disturbance. And that is one of the reasons why I decided that this topic is apt for now. And even though I know that the culture is changing, there are still many more of us that need to embrace research as a core responsibility in our field of practice. So various purposes, I've listed them there. You acquire knowledge effectively. There's nothing like carrying out a study and getting a result for you to know that you know that topic. Because before you get to the end, you have done a literature search, you have found out background, you have asked questions, you have then found results that either support or dispute what you originally thought. And so then you know this thing. Research helps in problem solving. As I said, you are curious about something, you are asking questions, and then you are able to organize a study to solve that problem, provides the latest information, builds credibility, your own, as well as even the institution where you're working. It helps in business success, because there's no field of life that research is not going on. We can say for those of us in the healthcare industry, we may think that it's only healthcare research that is worth doing. But if businesses don't engage in research, they will die. And that is the story of many of the businesses that have collapsed. They didn't know that life was moving on. They were still focused on the way they do business, the camera business, the film business, and such other businesses that have died because they did not take research seriously. There's a saying about, I think is this CEO of Kodak, or one of the film makers in those days, that said, we didn't do anything wrong, but our business collapsed. They didn't do anything wrong, but they didn't do some things right because they did not focus on where the world was going. It helps you to discover and seize opportunities, helps you to reach people. By the time you engage in 1-2 research and you have to reach people, I'm trying to collect data from colleagues, and you have reached them, you have given the questionnaire, you are hoping that they will fill it. You come back a week later, where's that questionnaire? Where's that? He teaches you some life and farming skills. I'm telling you, patience, how to dig deep. And there are people that, there are instances in trying to reach people, and you realize that if I leave this survey form with this person, we'll never fill it. So I'm offering, let me just be reading the question to you. As I'm reading it, don't be telling me the answer, I'm writing it. It's these things you learn, you don't realize you are learning something, but at the end of the day, you have improved and developed in your approach to interacting with people and dealing with people. Research also helps to introduce you to new ideas. What are the characteristics of research? It's systematic. I mentioned that in the definitions. There's a system to it. You have to plan every aspect of the research. You can't afford to leave anything to chance. And when you decide to leave some parts to just flow, it affects the usability of your results at the end of the day. And nobody wants to engage in a research that you have spent time, effort, money, resources, relationships, you are putting so much at the end of the day. Because of one thing that you failed to do at the beginning, the result is now not useful. Or because of something you didn't quite think through, you now have results that you need 1 or 2 additional questions that you didn't ask, and you can't go back to field because that's like spending the money all over again. So there's a system to it. Research must be generalizable. At the end of the day, you should be able to take the results that you get from this sample of people that you used and say it would apply to a larger group with some caveats or without some caveats, so that this result is useful. It's objective. You should be able to control aspects of the research. Research must be reproducible. You must be able to get the same results each time you do the study. And if people are interested in carrying out what you have done, they should get the same results too. You should be free from personal biases. And the truth is that we all have our personal biases, whether we realize it or not. Some, their biases are more overt than some. When you see somebody that is racist, when you see somebody that is, you think that those are the only people that have biases, but all of us have our different biases based on our backgrounds, based on how you grew up, the environment you live in. There are some things that you don't know that they are a bias until you are trying to do research. There are some questions you don't realize that you are posing because of the bias that you already have concerning that. For instance, you see a set of names written down. Consciously or unconsciously, as you're looking at those names, you are determining, oh, this one must be a female, this one must be male, or this one may be Christian, or this one may be Muslim, or this one is from the north, or this one is from the south. These are part of our biases that is showing. So you see a name and you're expecting it to be a lady, for instance, and the person shows up and is a guy, and you're like, how is this name, how does this name belong to a guy? So it's so when you're engaging in research, you need to be sure that your biases don't come into play. You're expecting a certain result, and then you are arranging the entire research so that you are sure to get that result. Or you think that this is what people will say, and when you don't get people to say that, you believe that they are lying, or they are not being true to themselves. Meanwhile, you may be the one that is not being true to yourself. Research must be replicable. It's different from reproducible in that there must be capacity to do the research using the same methods. So it's not that you do something and the method that you use is something that nobody else can have access to. Then in that case, that it cannot be replicable, and it may not be very useful. When you do something and we call it shutting the door behind you so that nobody else can come there, then you have not helped the system. You have rather deprived the system of something. Research, of course, should always be directed towards the solution of a particular problem. Now, engaging in research, what are some of the benefits? Excuse me. Research can be rewarding and exciting. And as a young researcher, especially if you're a young researcher, you would grow in your ability to do research as you do research. You realize that, oh, we were able to get this result. Oh, let's try it another let's try another one and see what we can get out of it, you know. And being able to get results, being able to make new discoveries, publishing those results gives you a level of satisfaction, a level of fulfillment that you may not be able to get elsewhere, because you put your hands into this thing. It started from somewhere and it's ended somewhere, and you can see the result. One thing we should always know, that you should not always imagine that you, as I said, because of our biases, we may expect that we must always get a certain kind of result for your results to be valid. Sometimes no result is a result. It has just shown you that that study cannot be done in the way that you felt it could be done. So it's a result on its own, and it's something that you should also realize that, oh, we need to then move on and try to do something differently. Research brings recognition and promotion to the pharmacist scientist. So now we're talking about the clinical pharmacist. You're recognized for being able to start and finish a project, bring out the results, publish the results. It enhances the reputation of the individual and the institution that individual represents, whether it's a community pharmacy outlet, it's a hospital, it's an academic institution, a research institution. Engaging in research and seeing it through. I was telling one of my MSc students recently, you know, one of the requirements or one of the courses that they take in the department is that they must publish an article. And while a lot of them try to, of course, they will try to find a way around not doing it, you know, but my student eventually got his article published, and I was congratulating him that I had actually expected that he would give up along the way, but he stayed with it until the article got published, and he is now interested in writing more articles. So he's now interested in taking it to another level, you know. It teaches life affirming traits, including patience. I shared an experience earlier. You know, you give somebody a questionnaire to fill, they tell you they'll fill it, come back in 2 days. 1 week later, they are looking for the questionnaire all over the place. So I will calm myself down and say, oh, should I give you another copy? And they'll say, oh, do you have another copy? Yes, please bring it. And they will collect it. And they may not even still fill it immediately, you know. So you learn some life affirming traits, honesty, Because if you're cooking research results, you know you cooked it. You know that what you have is not actually what you should have. So it's going to affect how you're going to be able to handle that study. So honesty, integrity, accuracy, self-discipline, goal setting to be able to engage in research and get the results that you need leads to fruitful collaborations. I can't say it enough. When we engage in research, you bring different people on board. A statistician, maybe somebody that would help to determine whether this product, when it's ready for market, will it be acceptable? So you bring these various groups of people together and they all look at the research proposal from their own expertise. The sociologist, the clinical pharmacist, the pharmaceutics formulation person, the engineer to help you design a system, So you bring all those people on board, and that collaboration, once you start, you can keep utilizing that same team for various other research projects. Some examples of research clinical pharmacists can be involved in: clinical investigations, medication therapy management, or drug therapy problems that a lot of patients are complaining about. You can decide to set up a study around that. Health services research, what goes on in hospital pharmacy, in community pharmacy, in academics, in various other healthcare systems, collaborations between the healthcare providers. All these are things that there's one research I'm interested in. I don't know if I'll get people to join me. And that is the reason why why we choose to work against each other's good. I've always wondered about it. You put a group of pharmacists together, you'll find out that some of the pharmacists will prefer to collaborate or collude. Don't let me say collaborate in this sense. Collude with the non-pharmacist to bring the colleague down. And I wonder, and I'm still trying to see how we can do a research around it, because we need to break that negative thing that we do to ourselves. Other professionals outside, they are one, they are seen as one. They may enter their closets and be boxing themselves and be insulting themselves, but we will never know because they don't bring it out. But we will open ourselves out wide. Let every other person come in between us and divide us. So if you're interested in working with that, you can private chat me. I'll be interested in putting a team together. Development and testing of new drug dosage forms, new drugs, clinical trials, operations research, new methods of drug preparation, administration. All these are things that we could be involved in as clinical pharmacists, and it will contribute to the kind of to patient care in our particular facilities. Another one that does not require so much cost implication is to engage in systematic reviews. So you can do a review around a topic, involves doing a lot of literature search around a very defined objective that you're trying to find. You do a desk review, and you can then publish that review, because systematic reviews are high on the evidence, on the caliber of useful evidence to guide practice. What are the types of research that are available? And this table or this chart looks at types of research from 4 angles: on the basis of application, on the basis of objectives, on the basis of the extent of the theory, on the basis of methodology, and then the others. And I'm going to be looking briefly at 3 of these types in the next few slides. So on the basis of application, we have basic or fundamental or pure research. And this is a study that is done to get more in-depth information about a subject or to advance a theory. So it's theories from the foundation for subsequent findings in this area. So it's fundamental. You're carrying out this research to find out why this thing is like this. You're not necessarily trying to apply it to why is it happening in a system or in an industry or with some certain people, but just how does this thing work? Why does it work? And that is what you're trying to find out. So that's for basic research. The basic goal of fundamental research is to advance understanding of the problem and develop theories based on the results that you get. On the other hand, applied or action research is carried out to identify the answer for a current issue that a society or business organization is experiencing. So you could then take basic research and apply it to be able to extend it, to be able to get answers to a specific issue that needs to be resolved. On the basis of objectives, we have exploratory, descriptive, and experimental research. Those are the three categories based on objectives. Now, before I go further, let me just say here that when you want to carry out research, you're not necessarily sitting down and saying, oh, I want to do exploratory research, or I want to do basic research. What you are trying to answer, or what you're trying to do, will fit into one of these categories. It's not as if from the get-go, you are sitting down to say, I want to do basic research, so what do I need to then do? No, it is that I want to do this research. It fits in as basic or as descriptive as the case may be. So for exploratory or formulative research, it helps you to explore phenomena not previously defined. It helps to gain better knowledge about a situation. So you are formulating theories and trying to explore these objectives to be able to determine what is unknown about this situation or this item or this instrument, as the case may be. For descriptive or statistical research, it is engaged to explain characteristic features of a population under study. It is concerned with answering questions like who is involved, what, when, where, how, regarding a phenomenon or situation. So you could do an observation to describe what is going on. So basically, you're just trying to understand what is going on, who is involved in it, who are the people that are engaged in that area that you are trying to study. While the third type of research by objectives is experimental or explanatory research. And here, an experiment is carried out. For all of us as pharmacists, when we say experiments, we're immediately thinking of PharmChem lab, where you have your Bunsen burner and your what's that, beakers, but experiments don't have to be in the lab. You could do an experiment that is people-based. You are doing an experiment, you want to determine if people respond to A or B, and you have a control group. You introduce A or B to the experimental group, and then you are comparing between the experimental group that you have exposed to the treatment and the control group that you did not expose to the treatment. So that's still an experiment. It doesn't always have to be in the lab. For experiments, you have to ensure that you deal with confounders, biases, because they can affect the study. If in this example I have given, you have exposed the treatment group to, okay, let's use a real life example. You want to see the effect of a training on pharmacovigilance, for instance, on a group of hospital pharmacists. So you have a group of hospital pharmacists that have been trained on pharmacovigilance, and you have a group that were not trained, and you want to compare if the training had an effect. So you maybe administer a questionnaire to the two groups at the beginning of the study, and then you trained the experimental group. You did not train the control group. And then after the training, maybe immediately after the training or weeks or months after the training, you then administer the questionnaire again to determine if there is a difference in their knowledge about pharmacovigilance, as we just shared. Now, you have to be sure that that group that you trained is not because they had previously been trained also by NAFDAC, or the control group, without you realizing, NAFDAC Pharmacovigilance Center engaged all hospital pharmacists on training that you were not aware of. So that would be a confounder at the end of the day, because now the control group has also been trained. So they've been exposed to some form of training, and it would definitely affect the results that you have. And so that goes on for various kinds of experiments. You have to be sure that it is only the treatment that you're trying to measure that is the difference between your experimental group and the control group. Types of research. The third one that I said I'd mention has to do with methodology or approaches to the research. And here we have basically two methods, the quantitative and the qualitative approach. The quantitative approach, just as it says, is based on measurement of quantity. How many of something that you can count. If you can't count it, then it's not quantitative. If it's looking at some quality of the group, something that you cannot count, then it's not quantitative. When conducting research on issues that can be precisely quantified, a quantitative method is what is required. While the qualitative approach is concerned with quality phenomena, its main goal is to get in-depth knowledge and explain the issue or subject, rather than finding the solution or coming to conclusions. So you're trying to find out why people do what they do. So that's a quality issue. It's not a how many. It's not a what they are doing. It is why they are doing it. So you're going to be asking questions such as open-ended questions so that they can share what they think. You're going to be doing interviews. You're going to be doing focus group discussions so that you can understand what is going on. While for quantitative, you want to be able to count, you want to be able to measure something, and you can do both quantitative and qualitative approach using similar tools, but the content of those tools may be different. For instance, you can use a questionnaire for both quantitative and qualitative approach methodology. But a question that is qualitative on a questionnaire would be something like, why do you think, or provide reasons for, so they're explaining what they think. While a quantitative question would be, what is, so you're asking the what question, or the how many question, how many people, how many adolescents engage in unprotected sex, in your opinion. They give you a range of numbers, so that's quantity. Why do adolescents engage in unprotected sex? That's a qualitative question, so that's that. Based on methodology, those are the two active methods or the two active approaches. We also have situations where mixed methods are used, when a combination of the two is required to actually get to the bottom of what you're trying to find out. So I put this table up to be able to put some differences to the quantitative and the qualitative approaches. So quantitative, as I mentioned, is based on quantity. This is qualitative. Quantitative focuses on numerical data like statistics, units of time, percentages, while qualitative approaches focus on descriptive information, people's beliefs, emotional responses. So if you're looking at an article, for instance, when you can see tables and charts, then that's quantitative information that you are getting. when they are giving you responses, some sentences, some of the respondents said this and said that, then those are qualitative responses that you are looking at. Quantitative approach is used to determine concrete things, while for the qualitative approach, it helps you to get in-depth knowledge and explain the issue or the subject at hand. Examples for the quantitative approach, for instance, surveys, censuses, A and B tests where you choose one or the other, random data sampling are quantitative in nature, while focus groups, interviews, and surveys, surveys you can, as I mentioned, it depends on what you put in the questionnaire that will determine whether it's qualitative or quantitative. Now we're going on to the research process, and we started by saying that research is systematic. There's a process to it. There's a system to engage in research, and I'll be putting us through some steps. You may find some material that will give you steps in fewer levels than what I'm presenting, but I liked the way this material gave me these steps because it broke the steps down into small enough bits so that we can really understand those steps. And you will see that these steps they kind of lead into the other. So the first step is selecting the research topic. I always tell my students, while it's a first step, the research topic that you start with is not casting gold, but at least you must have an idea of what you are trying to do. And then by the time you define the research problem, you do a literature search, you may refine the topic as the case may be, but at least you must have an idea of what you are trying to achieve. And the topic should be selected such that it can be clearly defined and understood. By the time you refine the topic at the end of the day, that topic should be speaking to what you intend to achieve. It should be speaking to the objectives that you will set for the work. Next step is to define the research problem. And a well-defined research problem is crucial, because if you cannot articulate your research problem, then it will be difficult for you to give a concise problem statement. When you have that problem statement, it's the statement on which many things are based in the research that you are trying to do. Many crucial decisions are based on the problem statement. So once you have your topic and you have the research problem clearly identified, for this study, you want to, let me go back to my adolescents. So you have a topic, a loose topic that's looking at adolescents and unprotected sexual intercourse, for instance, or adolescents and risky sexual behaviors. So you have a loose topic in your head. For you to come up with a research problem from that topic, of course, you're going to need to do a literature search to be able to tease out what's the research problem you are trying to solve. From this topic that I gave, adolescents and risky sexual behavior, somebody can take it from one angle, another person can take it from another angle, depending on what you are trying to solve. Once you have determined what your research problem is and you have coined the problem statement, you can then begin to look at what's research design, what data collection methods, what you're going to need to be able to solve that problem that you have elucidated. After you have defined the problem and gotten your problem statement, you then define the objectives. The objectives, for anybody that has done a research with me, you know that the objectives are the key. They are the foundation for the work that you're trying to do. I tell students that your research report tells a story, and that story revolves around the objectives of the work. So when you have your objectives, your methods tells you how you want to be able to meet that objectives. The results are the results of the objectives that you have set. The discussion is around the objectives, showing how your results compare with literature on the objectives. You know, so the objectives are really the foundation of the research work. If you don't get the objectives right, you will go to the field, and at the end of the day, you will find something is missing. Oh, we're not able to answer this question at the end of the day because we did not capture it as an objective. And we have already gone to field. We have 5,000 questionnaires filled. We can't go back to the 5,000 people and start asking them that 1 or 2 questions again to be able to add that objective to it. You know, so you need to be able to define your objectives. The entire effort and resources for the study are applied to accomplish the research objectives. A critical part of the research process, so the objectives are a critical part of the research process as it supports the completion of the entire work. Something that is on my screen that is blocking my... Sorry, just a minute. So as many of us already know, objectives should be SMART, comprehensive as well as attainable. They should be specific, that is S, measurable, that is M, attainable or achievable, as some people call it, that is A, realistic or relevant, as some people call it, that is R, and then time bound. You know, if you set your objectives and you find out that these objectives, it was not possible to complete the study. For instance, you are doing a WAPCP project. You have a finite time. Maybe you're supposed to submit your project by July, August usually. And by the time you set your objectives, you are saying that you want to use 12 months to collect post-intervention data. You know that at the end of the day, that is not within the time that you have. And so you need to rework that your objective to fit the time that is available to you. And that goes for any kind of study that you're doing. You're doing a research, a work-based research. You may have 3 weeks, you may have one month, you may have 1 year, depending on what you're trying to achieve. And you need to be able to get something out in the time that you have. The next step is to carry out a literature survey. You would say, how come it's number 4? Actually, you have been doing literature survey through step 1 before you even got to topic. Before you got to topic, you have been doing, because you have been checking the literature. Oh, is there information around this thing I'm trying to do? Have people worked on it before? There was a class I was having with some MSc students one time. So no, I think it was actually undergraduate student. You know, so I was giving them an example. So I was trying to think of an impossible idea, you know. So I was like, okay, if, for instance, if your topic, and then I said, oh, let's say if your topic is the use of sand as I think I can't remember what I said. You know, I just tried to find something that was completely out of it, and so that they will say, oh, there cannot be research in this area before, so there will be no literature survey for me to do. You know, students, and I'm sure many of us would have said that before at some point or the other. Oh, there's no research in this area, or excuse me, man, there's no research in this area. There's really nothing new under the sun. You know, so for this, my outlandish topic, use of sand as a cure for cancer, for instance, nobody would have, excuse me, man, nobody would have used sand to cure cancer. I agree. But still, for you to do this kind of research that nobody would have done before, you still need to do a literature survey. You still need to do and you need to find articles that you can use as a basis for your own study. So now you have a study that nobody has done, use of sand as a cure for cancer. But you know that sand is used for something. So you can look for literature in which sand is used for something. You will find literature on that. You know that there are cures for cancer. So there is literature around cancer cures. So you can, in the process of breaking the topic into 2, find articles in this area, find articles in this area. By the time you read a couple of the articles, you'll be able to get some ideas on how you can go about this topic that nobody has put together before. So that is why I say there's nothing new. There's no research that is completely new, that you will not find something to serve as a basis. So even though we put here, carrying out a literature survey as the number 4 step, you have actually been doing literature survey in coining out your topic, in coming out with your problems statement, because in your problem statements, you would back it up with literature. You would have evidence to show that this is a problem. Adolescents engage in risky sexual behavior. You must have references to back it up as a problem statement. And then in defining your objectives, you have, because of what you have already read, you have an idea of how to point the objectives for your work. So the literature survey just provides a good background. It helps you to, I don't know how much time I have left, so I don't know if somebody can let me know. So it helps you to have a good grounding. And when students don't do a good literature survey, we find it out, and they also find it out for themselves when they get to the discussion. They have done the study now, they have the results. They're now not able to discuss the results that they have because they didn't do a good literature survey. In that first 1 month, 6 weeks that Dr. Jordan gave you and said, go and do a literature review and come back on this topic, you felt that you had free time. That 6 weeks was free time for you to go and do other things, because as we all know, everybody is busy. But when you don't do a good literature survey at the beginning of the study, by the time you're not trying to discuss the results, you don't have anything to fall back on. And then you'll be doing your discussion like we do in FarmChem Lab. 15% of the respondents were female, 15% were male, 20% did not answer the question. That is results. In literature, in discussion, you are trying to see, okay, most of the respondents were female. Is this similar to previous studies? Is it different from previous studies? If it is different, why is it different? If it is similar, so that is what literature will help you to do. You have a good standing on the topic that you are working on, and it helps you to be able to situate the results that you have properly. The next step is formulation of hypotheses. And the prime task here is to identify potential variables, usually the dependent and the independent variables for the study, after which a relationship statement is formulated. So you can say, for instance, independent variable. Most of the time, the independent variables are usually the easiest ones to pick are the socio-demographic characteristics of the study population, the age, the gender, the occupation, depending on the kind of study that you're doing, their years of experience in their practice area. You want to compare those that are early career with those that are late on this knowledge of something or the attitudes to something. So the independence, it's not changing. Their age is not changing. The number of years they have spent is not, well, it may change. Next year, they'll be 1 year older in that profession. Just as 1 year later, you'll be older by an age, by a year, But those are really independent variables. The items for your study, for your objectives, maybe the knowledge or their attitudes, will be the dependent variable. So you want to see whether there's a positive relationship or a negative relationship between the independent and the, So in coining your hypothesis, you are looking at those relationships. In some studies and in some projects or some schools, you may do objectives and then you don't need hypothesis, or you do hypothesis and you don't need objectives, while for some studies you are required to have both. Then the next is to select your research design. And that research design allows researchers to answer the research questions in an accurate, economic, and objective manner, because you have picked how you want this research to go. Or this study is going to be a cross-sectional study. Because you have said it's a cross-sectional study, you are constrained to work within the bounds of what a cross-sectional study is. It is a case control study. It is a, so once you have selected the design, then you are constrained within the bounds of that design. You can't say you want to do a cross-sectional study, for instance, and then you do a time series. A cross-sectional study means that you appear, whenever you appear to collect data, a snapshot you get at that point in time is what you're going to use for your study. While a time series is that you want to do series of engagements to see whether there is a difference or there are changes because of A or B or C timing that, so it's different from a cross-sectional study. So once a design is picked, then you go with what that design requires you to go with. The research design performs two major functions. It helps you to prepare a structured plan outlining the required methods, just as I've said, and it also helps you to see whether this is suitable for the research. If you pick a cross-sectional design, at the end of the day, by the time you try to follow the dictates of a cross-sectional design, you realize that this may not be suitable for this study. Then you need to sit down and come up with a different design for your study. So because you have that design, it regulates and controls every step of what you can then do. Sample design, that's the next one. So the first one was the research design for the entire research. Then the next one, this one is the item 7 is for the sample. You're working adolescents in Lagos State. Of course, you cannot do all the adolescents in Lagos State. You're going to have to pick a sample of adolescents, so maybe you're then trying to do a sample of adolescents, or let me say adolescents are too wide. Let's say you're doing a study with students in tertiary institutions. And one of the reasons why I said adolescents is too wide is because we always have to qualify the adolescents, because you have in-school youth, you have out-of-school youth. They are not the same kind of people. So you can't treat them in the same manner. So if you say you're doing in-school youth, then you're looking at students in tertiary institutions or late secondary school, compared to out-of-school youth, those that you will find in motor parks, in garages, basically. So the kind of study you can do and the kind of thing you would expect in these two groups of adolescents will be completely different. Now, let's say you're doing a study of adolescents in tertiary institutions or in school youth, and you've decided, okay, I want to do tertiary institutions in Lagos State. It means that you must get a list of all the tertiary institutions in Lagos State. Now, you can have the funding and the financial muscle and the resources to do all the institutions in Lagos State, but the likelihood is that you will not. You may not. So you will need to do a sample. You can decide to do to make the work as generalizable as possible. It's preferred that you do a random sampling. So you have a list of the tertiary institutions in Lagos State, 1 to 7 maybe, and then you do a random sampling. Either you use the random table of random sample numbers, or you do the one we are all used to, the light piece of paper, 1 to 7 on 7 different sheets of paper, bunch it up, put it in your cup, mix it up, and pick. So anyone that you pick, so that means that the 7 schools have equal chance of being picked. So any school that you pick is that, okay, I'm going to do one school, I'm going to open the the sampling requires that I want to do do 3 schools out of 7, for instance. So out of that 7, you are picking 3. So you have a sample interval of 7 divided by 3, approximately 2 point something. So you need to pick, you need to pick from the 7, but you don't know which, is it number 1 I should start from? Is it number 2 or 3 or 4? So to give it as much randomization as possible, you pick 1 sheet of paper from your cup. You pick number 5. So your first school that you will involve in the study is the school that is listed number 5 on your list. Your sampling interval is 2 point something. So after 5, since you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So 5, 6, 7, you pick 7. You go back to 1 because 7 is the last number on your list. So 1, 2, you pick 2. So you have picked the 3 schools you need. School number 5, school number 7, and school number 2, as it is on the list. So you have given all the schools an equal chance of being picked, and that's the sampling. Now, your sample design, it permits you to have a representative sample for the study. What we do a lot of the times is what we do convenience sampling. It's just convenient for me. It's convenient for me to meet pharmacists at the PSN meeting in their state, or it's convenient for me to go to the ACPN meeting or to go to PSN conference and distribute questionnaire. That's convenience. When we do convenience sampling, it's limits from the generalizability of the study, because it means that your study it has only included those that would be at the meetings. Those that don't come for meetings have no chance of being represented or being involved in that your study. So there's already a bias. So now if you're saying that you are doing a study on knowledge of something, these people that you have biasly picked, you could say that they are the people that are, in quotes, seeking knowledge anyway. They're the ones that are coming to the meeting, they're the ones that are coming to the training, and you are picking from them. So the results that you get may not actually be generalizable to the majority of pharmacists. It could be, but it may not be. So that is how your sampling design, your choice of sampling affects the results that you have at the end of the day. And all this must be stated in your method section. If you did convenience sampling, you should put there that you need convenience sampling, so that the person that is using your results, they know that they have the results that you have is skewed towards maybe a very motivated set of pharmacists that come for conferences, that come for meetings anyway, and it may not be representative of the generality of the people. Selecting the data collection method or tool, that's the next item. And again, once you have determined the design, you've determined the sample, then you need to identify what data collection method you're going to use. Is it a survey? Is it an interview? Is it observation? Even if you're going to do a lab work, what you are going to, Dr. Issa, your hand is raised. Hello?
Hello, Dr. Issa, go ahead.
Is it to tell me my time is up?
No, I'm the moderator. Go ahead. I'm enjoying it.
Okay. All right. Thank you. All right then.
Yes.
So that's my train of thought. Sorry. So you talking about data collection method. Now, so if you're doing I was talking about, even if you're going to lab, you're going to do bench work. Let's say you want to test the assay, you want to do an assay of some drugs. The drugs that you are going to pick, you can't just pick them anyhow. You can't just enter one pharmacy and pick from just that one pharmacy. The results are skewed. So there has to be a system You must be able to say the system that is involved in how you selected the samples that you picked. If you want to, sometimes they say you want to call a dog a bad name. You can want to, what's that something, so that you can give it a bad name or something. You want to prove that this drug is fake. Then you went to a place where you know that this drug will definitely fail to pick the drugs. If it fails, it is what you expected to happen. But the results that you have is not representative of the generality of that product that is in the market. And if you cannot prove that you picked your items in a systematic manner, then the results that you have are not very useful, or they're not as useful as they could be. You want to do an assay, for instance, you have to identify, I'm going to be selecting my samples from community pharmacies. That's one. I'm going to pick, it's a combination of community pharmacies, patent medicine dealers, hawkers, wholesale markets, drug markets, so that you have, if it is a general study you want to do, then you have to be able to pick drugs generally. However, if your study is limited to assay of, you see some topics, you see ciprofloxacin brands in community pharmacies in Lagos State. So they've already told you where they're picking their sample from. So you can't tell them that they should have gone to patent medicine dealer, or they should have gone, so they've told you where they are going. So that is what they have chosen to.
Dr. Nojola, you can start rounding up, please.
Okay. All right. So they've told you what they want to do, and they have you can't fault them for it. So the next item is execution of the project. So you have determined the design, you have identified your sample, you have identified how you're going to collect data. The next thing is to go to the field and execute the project, implement the project as you have planned it in an ethical manner and according to the standards and the objectives that you had set. Interpreting data accurately and designing suitable formats for presenting the findings to different audiences is part of the execution of the project. Now, the next few parts have to do with analysis, and it's broken down into analysis of the data. And this is where a lot of us as pharmacists, we have issues with statistics. And one of the things I put in one of the tables that is further down is on improving your research skills, is that we should improve our statistics, our knowledge of statistics. So it is essential in analyzing data, the analysis of data is essential to draw out the meaning. You can have a whole bunch of, and I tell students that if you have your results, you have 5,000 questionnaires filled, oh, wonderful. And you have that table, Excel chart, maybe they filled a Google form and is uploading to Excel directly, or you have filled manual questionnaires and you have gotten somebody to enter the data into Excel. That Excel sheet that you have is not results, it's just raw data. It is until you manipulate that data to get usable results that people can understand, then that is where you have results. So just giving your supervisor that Excel sheet numbered from 1 to 5,000, you have not done anything. So you have to organize and analyze the data in such a way that there can be an understanding of the results that you have. Testing of hypotheses, still within the ambit of analysis, because the hypothesis that you set, you're now using the results to confirm whether the relationship that you have presupposed exists or it does not exist. Again, this falls under the purview of statistics. And the prime motive behind testing a hypothesis is to check its accuracy. Because you remember, we picked a sample from a full population. So if the hypothesis is not right for the sample, then it will not be right for the general population. Generalization and interpretation of data also still has to do with analysis. And the final results that are presented should be given some meaning. And this is where I was saying that when we publish our articles as researchers, we should find a way of communicating the results to the lay public, to management, to our regulatory agencies, to policymakers, in a way they understand. They don't want to see your all your formulae and they want to see simple bar charts, simple charts and flow diagrams that shows that you are saving them money, or you are helping them to maximize an instrument or a utility, or you are helping them to do something better. So if your results, you're not able to interpret your results in a way that the lay audience can understand it, then you still have some work to do. And this further talks about that interpretation of data. The outcomes from the research can be interpreted in two ways, whether as a theoretical outcome, in which case you are basically, we're talking about basic research, or in an empirical way, where it is giving meaning or applying it to a larger population. So the final part of the research process is the preparation of the reports. And it involves compiling all the steps and presenting them in a written form. One of the things I also listed as things we need to do to improve our research life is to improve our writing skills. For some of us, writing comes naturally. For some of us, it does not. But you can learn it, you can improve it, you can get better at it. Report writing needs skills and knowledge so that appropriate data can be properly presented. And this is basically what a research report looks like. The first thing to present is the abstract, although it is usually the last thing to be written. It provides a clear summary of the entire work, followed by the introduction, which provides the background, the reason for the study of the object, and that's the objectives, and then the overview of the work done, of the work done in previous literature. Next is the literature review, and then the method, how you intend to carry out what you plan to carry out, including a description of the participants, the setting, the measures, and how to analyze the data, as well as how you're going to get ethical approval. Then the results section, the discussion. Discussion provides an interpretation of the results and the implications of the study. So it's not just for you to, the discussion is not for you to just present the results again in English after you have done the tables and the summary of the tables in your results section. We now come to discussion and still be repeating the results as I've explained earlier, followed by conclusions and recommendations, and of course the reference list. And these are the steps in this summary. So basically we have tools for research, and we have about 3 slides to go. Tools for research, your mind, and I put there critical thinking, curiosity. You see something that you think you want to, and that's why for a long time in my department, we usually used to ask MSc students, even some final year students, do you have something that you have been thinking about doing in your office or in your environment, something that you would want to engage in for a project? And many of them have come up with something that they wanted to, a question they want answered to, and it was turned into a project. Your pen and paper, or in these days, a laptop or tab, for jotting things down, for writing things down, for capturing literature reviews, for writing the reviews in your own words and making it make sense to you. Reading materials, including books, journals, or access to these resources, whether it's through online access from the internet or through access from somebody that knows somebody that has access to something. We know how we do these things. Communication devices, phones, appropriate apps, emails, chats, etc. Access to the internet, access to libraries, online or physical. Output devices such as printers, CD writers, CD rewritable discs and CDs and discs. Access to laboratories, depending on the type of research that you are trying to engage in. Access to references software, access to collaborators, and access to statistical or analysis software. And we need to improve ourselves on that. Some people are really very good already. You can collaborate with them. As you're collaborating with them, you are learning. so that you can begin to try out your fingers on some of these analysis yourself. Improving your research skills, start with the big picture, work your way down. So you want to do something big, you can take a small chunk of it and another small chunk of it. You can start with a literature review and pass that on to somebody to critique for you, and then you can then take it on, develop a team, and then begin to work your way around it. The next thing I put there, engage in research. And you can see there, I have engage in research, engage in research, engage in research as a measure of improving your research skills. Identify reliable resources and sources, validate information from multiple sources. Don't believe the first thing you read. Don't believe the first thing you are told. Validate it. Make sure that 2 or 3 or 4 different sources are saying the same thing, so that you will not be made to look like a fool if you are trying to use that information. Then people will now bring confounding information that will stand what you think you know on its head. Utilize library resources, improve on your statistics, build sustainable research networks. And these research networks could actually be from your place of work. You could have a small team of like-minded people from your units, add 1 or 2 external people to it, and then begin to do work, publish the work, share the work as posters or abstracts, publish it as articles, and then you move on from there. Take in new information, stay organized, improve your writing skills. Barriers or challenges to engaging in research. Lack of dedicated time for research for many clinical pharmacists. I've said many clinical pharmacists are found in community or hospital pharmacy space. Competing workload priorities, not giving research sufficient priority. This, I put it there because for some of us, we don't think it's something that we're supposed to be doing. But when we give it priority, you will see that you are able to carve out some pieces of time or some time to begin to put it together. Failure to collaborate, procrastination, poor knowledge base, and this knowledge base could be in terms of statistics, could be in terms of how to conduct the research, could be in terms of how to find people to collaborate with, to bring their expertise to the table. Lack of confidence and fear of new responsibility. And I think many of us pharmacists are guilty of this. We just want to stay in our comfort zone. We don't want to engage new things that is going to rock the boat. Poor workplace support, unfriendly work environment. Some people have complained about their HODs or their CMDs, stifling them, not encouraging them. But as I always say, nobody will be your boss for life. If that unfriendly person eventually leaves, what will be your next excuse? Poor statistical or analysis capacity, lack of funding and or funding opportunities. I think that should be my last slide. So in my conclusion or summary, this presentation, an attempt was made to present concept of research for us as clinical pharmacists. And I hope that we have been able to pick 1 or 2 things that will help us to rise to the challenge of engaging in clinically relevant research in collaboration with other practitioners, with you, either the principal investigator or a co-investigator, addressing identified issues within your unit or your department. Self-directed barriers such as procrastination, lack of confidence, or poor capacity should be addressed forthwith. These are some of the, I'm sorry, I didn't do in-text referencing for this study. So these are some of the materials that I used in putting this together. And thank you for listening.
Thank you so much, Dr. Joda. Your presentation is very expository. You did justice to the topic.
Thank you.
And I think with the advent of pharmaceutical care and evidence-based practice, we should not only be consumers of research now, we should be active participants. Yeah. Because all this, will require data. Wasting more time. I'd like us to go to the next session. I think we may do it collectively, just to save time. You can send your question to the chat box. We'll take it one by one, but we have limited time, please. Please mute yourself and ask questions when necessary.
I'm trying to look in the chat box. I'm not sure there's any question there.
Hello, it's question time. So if you have questions.
I apologize to all the people that were trying to get me to know that my time was up. I'm just seeing all the messages.
Yes, and we know that the topic is very apt to our practice.
I was telling somebody that between a pastor and a lecturer, I don't know who talks more.
Yes, a lecturer talks more. Yes.
So it doesn't look like there are any questions. So maybe I should bring out the teacher in me and ask you questions. Oh, somebody's hand is up. You want to build the entire class. Please go ahead. Joy Okpara.
Go ahead. Go ahead. Joy Okpara,
Good evening. Good evening, Ma. Good evening, sir. Thank you so much. Right. I didn't join in from the beginning because I was on another online meeting, but as soon as I was done, I joined in. But the part I met was really very insightful. I was really excited. The reason being that, okay, I'm currently serving as a lecturer in Edo State School of Health Technology here in Edo State, Benin City. Although I'm not in academia, but I'm a lecturer.
You're in academia. Okay, you're just not in academia. You're not just in academic pharmacy, but you are in academia.
Okay.
It's like I've lost the choice.
I think you cleared my doubts now. I'm not an academic pharmacist, but I am in academia. And then sometimes I feel lost. I must really tell you that sometimes I feel a bit lost. Why I say so, I actively engage in research by virtue of being a lecturer. We train pharmacy technicians and we conduct research every year on topics connecting to pharmacy technicians and pharmacy practice. So I am able to supervise my students, even though we are really short-staffed and the workload is so much. But I'm at a point where I don't even know how I can make my research, the kind of research we do in my school and with my students, because I try to ensure that their topics are the type that takes them to the field. They go and get data on various topics, connecting them to health, pharmacy, and the rest. But I'm stuck with just getting their result. They present it during presentation. I have pile up of their seminar work, pile up of their questionnaires that we use to generate the seminar write-up.
Joy, you need to engage, you need to collaborate with people. You need to form a team. You need to form a team of people that will each year, you will determine, okay, maybe the best 3 topics. The best 3 topics may not be the students that scored the highest. They may be the most relevant of the topics to what pharmacy is saying at that point in time. And then within that team, somebody would be the main author for the first one, another person with the main author for the first author for the second one, another person will be author for the third one. So that within a few years, all of you will be first authors on different publications from what your students are doing. So you need to form a research team and you need to identify those that are around you that can join your team.
Okay. It's noted, Ma. I think that would be a good start point for me. And I have some colleagues in academia that I could collaborate with. Thank you so much.
You're very welcome.
Next.
Dr. Baba.
Danjuma.
Yeah.
Dr.
Thank
Danjuma,
you.
go ahead.
Thank you,
yes.
Dr. Joda. Thank you for the wonderful work you've done this evening. You've been able to.
Welcome, sir.
I'm Baba Danjuma, the Director of Health Planning, Research and Statistics, National State Ministry of Health. I'm happy to be part of this engagement this evening. And thank you for the encouragement. I think this is the only line to toe as pharmacists. we have to engage ourselves in clinical research, in particularly the clinical pharmacy research. It's a field that is so versatile, is so large, because I find myself working in the health system space. I came to realize that this is the only avenue that we can now showcase ourselves. By virtue of the health system structure, you have the WHO health system structure, which has to do with the 6 building blocks. Hello, I hope
okay, hear you. Go ahead. Yes,
go ahead.
The 6 building blocks of health systems, which one of which is the service delivery. And you find in service delivery, this is where pharmacists, particularly the clinical pharmacists, are supposed to demonstrate some level of capacity to be able to carry out some research, being it an operational research or an implementation research, to answer some basic questions. And until we do that and begin to publish our works, not only just restricted to the academia, but in the practice space, because we are
especially in the practice space,
so that we can now showcase some of these challenges that we are being faced. You go to some hospitals, they will not allow pharmacists to go around. By the time you bring our output, the output of some of our researches that is evidence-based, nobody will challenge the operation of it. So until we taught this line, that is why I became excited. That when I saw the topic, I said, oh, Dr. Joda is going to is going to make my day today. So thank you for this great work you've done this evening. The only thing that I would like to call our colleagues to be able to accept this new paradigm, because until we bring ourselves out, some of these products of our researches should be able to be brought into the national space so that we can now push at the national level, at the National Council on Health level, writing memos so that we can now be practically being seen as healthcare providers. So thank you once again. I'm happy to have you this evening and happy to listen to your presentation tonight.
Thank you so much. Thank you very much. Dr. Lubake.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. Thank you very much, Dr. Joda, for this insightful presentation. Mine is more of a comment that actually pharmacists seem to be sitting on a lot of data and not bringing it out in terms of research questions. Like, for instance, community pharmacy, anybody that has begun to do patient medication records and already have a lot of data that they can use to answer some research questions. So we need to maybe have more in-depth, would I say, another clinical topic, so that they'll know that they already have data and how to use that data that they have to be able to answer some research questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Well, I know that we cannot exhaust everything there is to say about research in one meeting. But as I mentioned, this is to bring us up, to help us to know that this is something we should be focusing on, we should be counting as our core duty, and then taking it on from there, forming those collaborations, starting from where you are. If I say this, I give this example every time. If the only research that we're doing consistently especially as community pharmacists is the consumption pattern of drugs in your pharmacies. So in every state, maybe every 6 months, we have one publication from somebody or from one pharmacist or the other, or from one zone or the other, looking at the consumption of drugs in our pharmacies. Do you know how it will guide policy as to the drugs that should always be available, the amount of money that should be made available for those drugs? A student of mine did one study a couple of years ago on the consumption of drugs in 3 pharmacies. And they found out the single most moving product in all pharmacies, the single most moving product is paracetamol. So whether you look at it as, is it only paracetamol? You cannot afford not to have paracetamol in your stand. The most moving, what's the word now? The antibiotic that moves the most was found to be, was it amoxicillin or augmentin? I can't remember, one of the penicillins. And the most common antihypertensive was amlodipine. You know, if we have this kind of data on a continuous basis, you know, it's going to be, not only will it inform the pharmacy itself and the community and ACPN members what they need to do, it will also show us the disease pattern, because these drugs are treating something. It will show us that, oh, like when, if we remember, when PTF was around, and they just bought drugs and took drugs to various hospitals, dropped this here, dropped this here, dropped things wherever they like, no quantification, no nothing. And drugs were expiring in one store and they were much needed in another place. And they couldn't exchange it because of one bureaucracy or the other. You know, so if we take it as a priority, we can get a lot out of it. Air Commodore Babalola, please.
Babalola, please.
Thank you very much, Dr. Joda. I think I enjoyed your lecture. It was very simple and easy to follow. Thank you very much. And thank you for all you do. I'm one of your products. Proudly so.
Yes, sir.
The time is fast spent. I have just one question, in a short one. And when you're conducting literature review, and I want to find out, what do you consider as the age of the oldest literature that one should review? And this, for instance, is 2023, reviewing in literature. Should you look at 10, no literature should be older than 10 years, or is it 5 years? Or from your experience, how will you guide us? Thank you.
No, there's no hard and fast rule to that question, because it depends on what you're looking at. If you're looking at something like a systematic review on TB management or hypertension management, you may say, I can limit myself to 5 years, 10 years. If you're looking at some other conditions, you may need to go further back, because maybe they're not so much on the burner, or, you know, or you're looking at something like doing a review on pharmaceutical care. There's no review you're going to do on pharmaceutical care. You will still refer to the landmark beginning of pharmaceutical care. You can't do without it. You know, so there's no definition as to limiting the literature type that you use. But the important thing is that in defending whatever you are saying in the review, you must have sufficient references to justify what you are still saying. So if you're saying something about HIV management, for instance, you cannot be using the standard of 5 years ago when there are new standards. MSc students presented a seminar in our department today, and somebody was presenting American Diabetic Association's new targets. Oh. So there's a 2023 target. If you want to do a review now and you want to do something on current information, you have to use what is now current. You can refer to the old one, but you have to have the current one. Well, you know, so there's no real deadline to say, no, it's 2023, you must not have something from 2021, or you must not have something from 1945, say. You know, it depends. If that 1945 study is the gold standard in that study area, there's no way you can leave it out.
Okay. Thank you very much. I think it's clear enough. Yes, ma'am. Thank you very much, ma'am.
Thank you. Thank you. I think we're coming to the end of this presentation. Hello? Do we have more questions? Hello? Hello?
We can hear you, sir. I think silence means that nobody has question.
Nobody has question. Okay. We'll have to round up. Time is fast spent. I would like to call on Farm Mohammed Fulton to lead us in a closing prayer.
I think there should be a closing remarks by the SIPA National Chairman before you close the meeting.
Okay, sorry. My chairman, sorry. Before you start me. I've seen our national chairman and the secretary too. You are duly recognized. The only thing I will ask for, many people want this lecture, this presentation, if you can be posted in our platform so that many people will access it. Thank you.
Yes,
Mr. Chairman, you are welcome.
All right. Good evening. Good evening, Mr. Moderator.
Yes.
Opportunity to share some. Let me appreciate Lagos.
Can't hear you, Chairman.
Chairman.
Can you hear me?
You are far away from
the
device. Very far.
We can barely hear you.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes. Yes, we can.
Okay, you can hear me now. Am I right?
Yes. Yes.
So sorry for the interruption. I say, let me use this opportunity to appreciate Lagos SIPAN for a wonderful lecture to Nigerian clinical pharmacists tonight. Having gone through the attendance, it's a very well attended lecture tonight. About over 93 persons I saw on the attendance list.
It's true.
And that's very encouraging after our conference. It's good to see all of us once more and hear our voices. I also want to recognize our elders. I saw some elders. I saw Professor Bola Olayiwola. He was even raising his hand. I don't know, I'll still give him opportunity, maybe to say something. He's still
yes.
And then I saw Mrs. Pharmacist Emily Olapre of P. I saw her here, and I saw the flight officers. I saw people with them, and I was wondering about 4 of them. I saw Sandy.
Chairman, we can't hear you again.
We can't hear you again.
You can't hear me again?
Yes.
Continue, Chairman.
Okay, I'm just appreciating everyone, thanking the participants, thanking the flight officers that I'm also seeing. And I was wondering, 4 of them. So and when I saw Babalola, I said, okay, maybe he also helped to bring them in too. So I want to appreciate him. It's a very wonderful lecture. And we all know that our slogan in SIPAN is advancing the right patient care through clinical pharmacy practice, research, and education. Dr. Joda has already given us a lot of confidence through the lecture, and we can do a lot. And if we are to live by what SIPAN stands for, advancing direct patient care through clinical pharmacy practice, research, which we are talking about this night, it means we are walking the talk. As we learn 1 or 2 things about research, I heard Professor Joda saying, engage. And that is what I will still say to all of us. Let us engage. It doesn't have to be in the chemistry lab. It can be your community pharmacy or hospital. So on that note, I want to say thank you, everybody. God bless us all.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I hope my request that this should be posted to our platform will be met.
Yes, the presentation will be posted.
All right, okay, all right. All right, Professor Olaiwole. Yeah, okay. Bazman, you are welcome.
Yes. Thank you. Hello.
Hello, sir.
Yeah, good evening. Only a small addition that depending on whether somebody is in for MSc or PhD, it will actually determine how far back the reference can go. Just like she said, critical references like the originator or innovator, yes, can be mentioned. But usually when you are talking of PhD, they don't expect you to go too far back, more than 5 years. Whereas for MSc, it's supposed to be for 3 years. Settings can be different, but in OAU, they appreciate and emphasize that a lot. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Prof. Last month. Thank you.
We don't have such strict timelines in UNILAG. We expect that you should have sufficient current references to make the work reliable. I think the National Secretary wanted to say something.
Yes.
Good evening, ma'am. Good evening, everyone. Good evening. Thanks so much. We have really gained a lot tonight. In the spirit of what National Chairman just said in walking the talk, I want to make a request and a suggestion. CPAN, we are sitting on lots and lots of data ourselves. We've had several beautiful presentations. So I don't know, I want to suggest if there is a way that you can lead us in this, we should have researches from CPAN members, CPAN as a body too. We can do it. I don't know how we are going to do it, but we have to start looking at even making presentation at international fora, not only Nigeria now. So if there is a way we can make that happen, ma, I would like you to be a big part of it, ma. So it won't stop at just having this lecture, ma. Thank you.
I'm sure that there are people that we can put together. Maybe one of the ways that CPAN would go about that may be to look at having a research coordinator for those various zones for CPAN, and then we could then plan some national studies. Just like ACPN has identified a research team, and they are planning national studies on ACPN. So we may look at that as an initial plan.
Thank you very much. Thank you. I don't know whether Farm Mohammed Fulton is around. If he's around, let him lead us in a closing prayer. Farm Mohammed, are you around? Hello?
Yes, I'm around.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. اللهم صل على محمد وعلى ال محمد انك حميد مجيد سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون وسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين رب زدني علما نافعا. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Good night, all. Good night.
Good night, everyone.
Good night,
everybody.
It's nice to be back. Thank you, yes, Prof. Jordan. Thank you.
We didn't even greet ourselves for first meeting since a long time. Bye. Good night, everybody.
Good night, ma'am. Thank you.